I'm chatting with John Knorr, CEO and founder of SISS Business Systems. John, the more I read about the Uglii business systems, the more I know I don't know. There's obvious benefits to businesses, but what about the benefits to economies?
Joe, I understand your problems with these systems. It's fairly easy for business to understand the benefits because they're fairly constrained and refined. The bigger picture, of course, is the benefits to economies. Historically, that's been very powerful for economies and economic development. As you know, there's a huge transformation of the way we communicate because of the internet. The ability to access almost unimaginable amounts of data is fantastic. Our ability to communicate around the world almost instantly, to use the internet for telephony communications is great. The ability to do transactions online and online banking is fantastic for business. But there's one area that I think that the internet sort of failed, hasn't matured, and that's in terms of the way businesses are discovered. The problem is that business information is not organised in a logical way. Now, there's some attempts by the United Nations about 10 years ago to get into doing that, and they basically failed. What we've done is sort of taken off where they've left off, and what our systems are about is getting business information organised so it can be searched in a logical and easily understood way by businesses and consumers.
Right, so exactly how is Uglii set to do that?
The first target's got to be achieved is to get business information organised properly. Directory systems tend to do that because they tend to be organised, but the problem is that there are thousands of them around and they don't work from a common standard. So what our systems are doing is setting up a common standard for information around the world that can be used in every economy.
Right.
And what we're releasing is common systems in every economy. Now that's important because what happens at the moment is directory organisations go into an economy, set up an online directory system, but they're talking with different processes and different categorisation of businesses, different categorisation of business information. So that's the first task. And the second task is to give processes that allow businesses, any business in the world, to react or transact with any other business in the world with some security, knowing that they're dealing with the people I think they're dealing with. At present, there's a lot of fraud on the internet, and our systems are closed systems so that we know who we're dealing with. So if a business registers in the system, we're fairly confident about who it is and what it's doing. And anybody using our system within our systems knows who the other person that they're dealing with is.
Right.
So let me come back to the first section of that, which is the organisation of that information. We've gone about in two ways. One is to organise it spatially, in other words, geographically. So we allow businesses to come into our system and locate their business on our mapping systems where they are so they can be discovered geographically. We allow them to set up what we call an Uglii, which is where our name came from.
Clever name.
Yeah, it is a clever name. Allows a business to set up an Uglii in the system and associate keywords and codes with that location of that business. So if somebody comes into the system and wants to find a business that provides a particular service or product, they can do that. The second point, of course, is that we all describe things differently, and particularly when it comes to different languages, we describe the same thing differently because we're using different languages.
Yes.
Now, what we've set out to do, and this is what the United Nations set out to do too, is to have a common language effectively for the products and services that are in the global economy. We've set out over a period of about 5 or 6 years to describe every product and service in the global economy. At the moment, we have described about 700,000 products and services, so it's a big effort.
Yes.
And the beauty of that is that somebody can look up and do a search in that taxonomy, what we call a taxonomy, to find the product and service that they're talking about. And then thereafter, a number associated with that description is used for all search processes. The advantage of that is that you can disregard language, because we have translations for those descriptions as well. So I can be looking up for a product or service in English, and somebody else can look up that same product or service in Chinese or Russian or Spanish or Portuguese, whatever the case may be, whatever the language of choice is.
Right.
Now, so the beauty of that process is that it takes the ambiguity out of search processes.
Yes.
If you go into a search engine at the moment, what you're really doing subconsciously is saying, well, I wonder how the rest of the world describes the product or service that I'm looking for. Okay, so you're typing in what you think is the description that the rest of the world uses for that process. Very uncertain process, but our systems take that ambiguity away.
Right.
Okay, and give some certainty.
Okay.
So once you've got those two processes in place, and businesses subscribing to those arrangements, then it's fairly easy to have very precise and very powerful directory type services to service every business on the planet. Mm-hmm. So what we're doing in each economy is allowing every business in the economy to come into our system and register and get some free benefits for that business. So that's the first step. We don't want any barriers to entry. We don't want cost to be a barrier to entry. So any business, no matter how large or small or remote or poor or specialist it might be, can come into the system and get discoverability benefits from the system.
So can Uglii improve every economy?
Yeah, we think so. Those same disabilities occur in every economy, no matter how sophisticated it may be. So our processes have got benefits for every economy. You could argue that the processes have the biggest benefit in the least advanced economies, because it's bringing up everybody to the same level. So it's a fairly egalitarian approach to the internet and information, business information around the world.
What are the economic benefits of Uglii?
Well, there's a bunch of them. Some of them we understand fairly well and have studied and had economists do work for us that sort of describe and model those benefits. And others we've basically said, well, look, common sense seems to dictate that there's benefits. So we've left them alone. We've preferred to spend our money on other things rather than doing it on economic modelling. But some of the benefits we recognise, one we call a compressive effect in our systems, basically means that because our systems can provide so much accurate information, whether it's where the business is that I need to buy something from, or other related information, it can shorten up the decision-making time, so that the time from when a person decides that they may want to buy something, or a business decides that they may want to buy something, to when they make the decision is shortened up. That has the benefit of allowing more business activity to happen in a given period, such as a year. Now, economists generally these days measure economic activity by GDP. So our processes allowed more business to happen in the course of a year, which means that the GDP of an economy grows by those processes. So by getting information quicker and smarter and more comprehensively, so there's less doubt about what you should be buying or when you should be buying it or from whom you should be buying it, means that those processes can go much faster.
So that obviously creates competition.
That's a second benefit, yeah. Competition's another benefit. So yeah, our systems allow a buyer, whether it's a business buying inputs to operate its business, or it's a consumer buying something for itself or its household. Our systems allow much greater competition. In the first instance, our directory systems mean that I can see all the suppliers of a particular product or service that may be geographically close to me, if that's important. Or more comprehensively, I can see them around the world, which means that I might say, well, it's too expensive to buy that service in Australia or the United States or Canada, but I might want to buy it from India or somewhere where there's a lower cost base for providing that service. So it allows me to make decisions based on competition because I can see all the providers of that service in the world. The next aspect of competition, which I'm glad you brought that up because it's so important, is in the later versions of our system, which will be coming out in about 12 months' time, they're what we call marketplaces. And what they allow a business or a consumer or a household to do is put up their hands electronically for a product and service or service that they want. And interested suppliers can make offers to that request person or business to supply that quantity of that product or service that they want. Now, what's interesting about our system is that they're geographically based, so that a supplier can define the catchments into which it wants to do business or is capable of doing business. And so offers on behalf of that supplier will be made into that catchment where the buyer's in that catchment. And if the buyer's outside that catchment, then the system will ignore that requesting business on behalf of the supplier. Now, that's a fairly powerful process. It's powerful because it means that a business that's making offers need only make offers into the very specific catchments in the whole world that it wants. Now, the catchments may be the whole world, or they may be a country, or they may be a state or province, or they may be just within 500 metres of their business. If I'm a pizza shop,
yes,
I might want to make offers for pizzas fairly locally because I don't want my delivery guys to have to travel halfway across town. Okay, so that's a very local example. On the other hand, if I'm a tradesman, I might have a bigger catchment. If I'm a car dealer, I might want a catchment within 20 Ks or 30 Ks or 100 Ks even, because I'm keen to get people to buy my cars. If I'm a supplier of something that can be delivered by postal systems, of course, I might be more than happy to have the whole world as my catchment. So our systems allow the supplier to define geographically the catchments into which they want to supply.
I see.
So it's very smart.
Okay. How can it help the efficiency of government?
Well, we treat governments as businesses in our system. So our systems can affect an increase in efficiency of businesses in their economy. They can also make governments more efficient as well. So the same basic rules apply to governments as providers of services or products as they do for ordinary businesses in their same economy.
Yep.
So we don't really discriminate between the two.
Right.
Charities, of course, provide services too, and not-for-profit organisations. So we treat them all as the same. Anybody who provides product or service in the economy can use our system and get dynamic benefits from our systems.
What about postal systems?
Yeah, there's big benefits for postal systems. Postal systems are interesting in that they've been hurt more than a lot of organisations by the internet itself. Of course, emails have meant that people don't send what we call first-class mail anymore. That's sort of a thing of the past. People don't write letters. I don't know how long since you've written a letter by hand, Joe, but it's a long time. So that their first-class, their premium product or the premium services have basically the demand for them has disappeared. What our systems do, and why we like postal systems, is that postal systems generally have maintained a network of local post offices. Now, what usually has happened in most economies is the postal management have been trying to close the postal system, the post offices down because of costs and losses. Politicians, on the other hand, like to keep post offices open because they're a public service. and therefore there's this sort of clash between the postal establishment and the political establishment, being governments. Our systems provide some solutions to those things, because we can turn the little local post office into an affiliate in our marketing structure, which means that revenues can come in to that little local post office. They can stop being a drain on the postal system and start being a profit centre for the postal system. So that's an important thing. That's a change of revenues, change of fortunes. I think probably the more important thing, however, is that particularly in developing economies, postal systems can be seen as little engines of economic development based around post offices. So you're too young to remember this, but when I was a kid, there was two people of real status in the local town, perhaps three. The policeman had some status. The postmaster had a lot of status. The post office really was the hub where you got information from, and usually the telephony system ran through the post office too. Right, yeah. So this guy knew everybody, and he knew everything. He knew everything about government processes, whether officially or unofficially, and he was the guru, the local guru for the local economy. So in some ways, our systems are going back to the past, going forward by going back to the past. The effect for the postal industry will be to allow post offices to basically become little economic powerhouses for their area using our technologies. So that if somebody wants to do something, a business wants to do something on our system, doesn't quite get it, then they can come in and ask the postmaster or somebody in the post office, and they can do it. If they haven't got a laptop or a computer, and if they can't do what they want to do on a mobile phone, then they can come into the post office and log in and do the thing that they want to do at the post office. So we think that's going to be a very exciting time for the postal systems that are able to come in and use our system and exploit a relationship with our system. Right. So yeah, we're excited about that.
And are the benefits greater in a more advanced economy, or would it be the other way around?
I think the benefits are probably greater in a less advanced economy, strangely enough. So the post office can be seen as a local hub of sort of economic development and understanding of our processes. In more advanced economies, there's probably no need for that. People have got some fairly good understanding of processes on the internet, and our systems don't depart that far from normal practice on the internet. So even though they're more advanced, more sophisticated and much more powerful, they're still using fairly comfortable processes. So I think bigger benefits in the less developed economy. Yeah.
Now, John, you've been predicting a flood of trademark applications around the world. Why is that?
We've got two directory systems. The one that is spatial, allows a business to come in and locate its place using an Uglii on the mapping system. The second system is a taxonomy of descriptions of products and services. One of the features of that is that a business that is a brand owning business can go into our system and list its brand underneath our description of a product or service in that taxonomy. To do that, they must be a registered trademark in a country, so that if I'm in a particular country and I don't have a registered trademark and I want to be in this directory system, I need to go and at least apply to get a trademark that I can then list in this thing. So they're our rules. In every economy, businesses are fairly slack about that. My understanding is that there's about 30 million trademarks around the world, which sounds like a hell of a lot. But given that there's about 200 million businesses, there's probably not as many as you'd expect. So we'd expect that there'll be a rush to register trademarks so that businesses can go in and list their products and services, their brands under the appropriate products and services in our directory system. The reason they'll do that is because it's very affordable. In the advanced economies, we're talking about $10 a year to list a brand under a product or service, which of course is nothing. And in less well-off economies, we're cutting that price down. So instead of $10, it might be $4. So it's a very affordable listing. Now, what a brand can do also is it can have what we call a flag listing in another economy. So if I'm a producer of a product or service in Colombia or Mexico, and I want to market into the US economy, I can simply tell the system to also list my brand into the US economy. That's what we call a flag listing, which is basically saying to anybody that was looking for its product or service in the US economy that, hey, there's a supplier of this product and service in Mexico or Colombia or wherever the case may be. Now, of course, that has a profound effect because it's immediately allowing a brand of a product and service in Mexico or Colombia to have a presence in a very powerful system in the United States. Similarly, a brand in the United States can say, well, look, I want to be conspicuous in all the other economies in the world in this system. And our system will ask them, a bit like McDonald's, do you want chips with that? We're saying, do you want to list this in another economy? And they can click, yeah. Now the bill goes up,
yes,
but still it's a very affordable service for any business that's trying to penetrate another economy or the world economy. They can do it very economically with our systems.
Right.
So the economic advantage, the economic benefit for that is that the barriers for export for a provider of a product or service in a developing economy have almost disappeared with this process. They can be seen, they can be conspicuous in any economy that they want to be seen in as being a source of that product and service from another economy. So very powerful system for developing economies, but also a very powerful system for any business or, say, a manufacturer that manufactures a specialist bit of machinery or specialist tool or something like that. They can be seen very easily anywhere in the world where they want to be seen.
Right.
So the benefits for that in an economic sense, we think are quite revolutionary. It makes, the barriers to trade disappear basically,
yep.
or certainly become less of a barrier. If I want to go into, say, from Australia where we're based, if I want to go into the US economy with a new product or service, I've got a budget, $1 million.
Yes.
With this system, I can have a presence in the US economy for $10, so it's revolutionary.
Uglii also have a great range of services for your government. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
There's probably 6 or 8 services that are designed for governments, and they range from specialised services that allow them to show a directory of their economy or a specialised directory of their economy. Let me give you an example. If a government wants to promote a particular industry in an economy, they can present a filtered view of the economy that's showing where the businesses are that are in a particular industry. Now, let me give you an example of why you do that. If I was a government that was wanting to promote, say, food processing and investment from overseas or internationally in food processing, I could show all the businesses in the economy that are either in the food processing business or that provide support for the food processing industry. If I'm going to start a food processing plant, I want to know that there are skills in that local area to support my plant. I don't want to have to bring in every stainless steel manufacturer into that economy. I want those skills and those services to be locally where I'm going to set it up. So I don't want to have to always break new ground in that process. So I'm more likely to invest in a cluster of food processing industries or businesses because I know that there are those services around to support me. So that's very important. If governments can show that stuff visually, such as on our mapping systems, where all of those food-related supporting businesses are, that makes it a much easier decision for a food company to say, well, look, there's a node of support for us, we'll go in there. Similarly, they can see where the raw materials are for that. So if it's in the dairy industry and they're looking for a supply of milk, then they can see very easily in our system where the milk producers are in that economy, and so on. So what we've really got for governments is the ability for them to package up the investment opportunity visually in a way that makes it easier for investors to say, yeah, this is a good idea. Let's go further into this because this is looking good. I can get all the stuff done locally. There's the skills there. There's knowledge there. I can exploit that. Similarly, a government might have a program of wanting investment in high tech or in some area of bioscience, for example. If it can show what's going on in the economy, in a visual sense, then it's a hell of a lot easier for somebody to make a decision because they can see all those existing players, and in our system they can link across to them, click on their Uglii and link across to them, see what's going on in the economy. Much easier with those things. Okay, so it's fairly sexy sort of stuff. In terms of government services, delivery of services, they can show by way of an Uglii where all the services are that people need in their economy. So I want to get a passport, then put in passport. I can see, oh, it's at that place there, wherever I need to go to get a passport. I want to get something else in the economy from that the government supplies, then I can see it very easily. If the supply of a service shifts from being government supplied to being supplied in the private sector, then I can easily see that too. So it's a very easy process for discovering the products and services that I need. The list goes on, but basically we can help governments do things more efficiently. We can help governments show their economies off better. We can help governments look better themselves. We can help them manage the government business interface better because they can come into our system and credential businesses in the economy just for their own housekeeping point of view. So if they put out a regulation about health or environmental protection, they can give a credential in our system to the businesses that are complying with that and see the ones that aren't complying.
Right.
They can chase them up. Or the market can see the ones that aren't complying.
And some of these services are free, John?
We usually charge for them, but the charges are so modest that the government wouldn't even notice they were being charged for them. Our systems are totally automated, so we don't have big overheads. Everything's very affordable in our systems, which is revolutionary in itself. There's really no barrier for any government, no matter how what state it's in, from using our services because they are very, very affordable. Right. Okay, there's no setup fees or insignificant setup fees as well, so there's really no barriers to them using it.
So how do businesses actually get involved with Uglii, John?
Joe, any business that's a legitimate business in an economy can simply go into the website of an affiliate. Now, an affiliate can be just a guy that wanders around town with a laptop registering business, or it could be a postal system's local post office, it could be a telco's website, it could be a lot of things because our system is fairly flexible. But once they go through that registration process, they're in and they can get those benefits by registering. Registration process varies from country to country because, of course, the registration process of a business vary from country to country. So we generally mimic the registration processes on a country by country basis. So if you want to register in Australia, it's got a slightly different structure to registering in the United States or registering in Mexico or Colombia or South Africa. Yeah, so it varies depending on the economy. But it's very easy. Somebody can just look it up on the website. If they go to uglii.com, they can find an affiliate to register under. So it's very easy. Governments, of course, can register too, and they're going through the same process, except in the registration, they're identifying themselves as a government. Our system then knows what services to offer them. our processes are driven by the system more than by the affiliates, because we've got about 46 services in the system, and we don't expect our affiliates to understand all of those services. But if we know it's a government department registering in the system, we'll tell that government department through a control panel that they get to log into which are the services that they're likely to use.
And that's all automated?
That's all automated, because we know a lot about the business when it registers. We can present to it the services that we think that business needs. If it wants to buy them, it can buy them. We know its processes in the system, whether it's getting exposure, it might need to buy another service. If it's not getting exposure, it might, and so on. If it's a government, we know what services that the government's likely to want to buy to expand the thing. So it's not about government departments or businesses having to sort of wrestle intellectually with the huge complexities of our system. The system is smart enough to say, look mate, this is what you want. Have a look at this as an option of going forward in our systems. So it's it's confusing when you talk about it, but when you're using the system, it's very simple.
And how does Uglii systems aid in lower input costs?
Input costs, of course, are a fact of life for every business on the planet. It comes back to your earlier question about competition. Competition is the way to lower input costs. If you can get your suppliers competing to win your business, then your input costs are going to come down. Now that's a fairly self-obvious statement, but of course most businesses, and particularly small businesses, don't have the luxury of specialised buyers in their business. So they tend to buy what's convenient rather than what's competitively priced. So these systems, our systems, allow even the smallest little farmer or small business person to actively test the market for their business inputs and select the cheapest or the best input deal that they can get out of the information that our system supplies. So there's probably no excuse why a business shouldn't be using those services, because they're free. They can go in, even if they've only never spent a cent in our system, they can go in and test the marketplace for their inputs. So they should be doing that in terms of their own preservation. Of course, if I can reduce my inputs to my business, I can increase my profits, which means that I can be taking home more if I'm a business owner, and providing more to the missus that you can spend on the household expenditure. Yeah, absolutely. If I'm a bigger corporation, it means that there's more profits for me to be taxed by the government, so the government can get a bigger share of those profits. There's probably more room to pay better wages, so workers get a better deal out of the whole process. There's more money for reinvestment in the economy as well. So the benefits of getting input costs down are really quite profound throughout an economy, and they flow on right up and into government coffers.
And how can Uglii aid investment for businesses or industries?
Look, this is one of the big problems with every business, every small business around the world. At the moment, banks are being very stingy about providing capital to small businesses, and it's a big problem. Our systems treat investment opportunities as a commodity. Now, that's a big change in the way the world works at the moment. What we're really doing is saying to anybody that wants to invest in things, look, here's an investment opportunity. It might be a business that requires more capital. Now, we're not cutting across any of the regulatory processes that governments like to impose on investment, but we're simply saying that here is an opportunity. Now, some of the best investments I've seen in business are between businesses of similar nature, so what we'd call peer-to-peer investment. So if I'm in a particular industry, so I'm in manufacturing of pumps or something, if I can invest in another company in another country, then that's usually a better and more successful investment, because not only do I put money into that company that needs the investment, I'm creating a new relationship, I'm transferring technology, I'm transferring know-how, I'm probably creating a market in my own country for the products of the company that I've invested in.
Right.
So what our system's doing is making those opportunities conspicuous in every economy.
And
So
more visible, obviously.
absolutely. So if I go into that Uglii brand system with that big taxonomy and I look for investments, and I look for investments in my economy, say in the manufacturing industry, and I can't find anything that's terribly exciting there, I can just ask the system to give me every investment opportunity in the manufacturing industry around the world. And the system will deliver each of those instantly onto my screen. So these systems are very, very powerful, and they're particularly powerful for smaller businesses that don't have the ability to have a big organisation represent them in gathering up investment. So.
And what about visibility with Uglii?
Well, that's another issue. If I'm in the Uglii system, then I'm visible globally. If I'm a company or business that provides a product or service, then anybody who's looking globally or comprehensively or in the next country or in a country that's got low cost production facilities, whatever it may be, they can see me. So it's very, very important for economies that governments encourage businesses to come into our system, because if they're not in there, they're not discoverable. If they're discoverable, they've got a chance of picking up business. If they're not discoverable, they've got no chance.
And then obviously if they do pick up business, they're helping the economy.
Of course, yeah, they're creating more employment. They're earning balance of trade dollars for the economy. They're creating taxable profits and all those things that go to make economies work properly. Yeah.
John, it looks like Uglii business systems are set to revolutionise the way the world does business now.
Well, revolutionise is not a word that we sort of have in our vocabulary, but certainly going to change the way the world does business, we think, and make it a lot better, easier for small business in particular, but also big business. There's a lot of services in there for big business. We're not discriminating against them in any way. In fact, there are some great services just for big businesses that are going to help them. The services for postal systems, like we've mentioned.
Yes.
Telcos are going to get huge benefits. Banks are going to get benefits from our systems. There's lots and lots of services. There's 46 services in our systems, and they all have an application somewhere in most economies. We think this is a big picture change for all of the world's businesses and governments, and fairly easy processes as well. So we're very excited about it. It's taken us 10 years to get our heads around this and pull it all together.
No wonder I can't follow it. It's taken you 10 years. Thanks very much, John.
Thanks, Joe.